I don't need an intro, do I?
Hello, and welcome to my very first video doing a financial review of the first Amazon returns pallet that I bought. I'm Scoots, and we're gonna hang out today while I figure out how to make YouTube videos and be a normal person in front of a camera. So back in fall of last year, I purchased an Amazon liquidations pallet. If you're not sure what that is, when you return something to Amazon, typically, it is not worth the time or effort or money for them to reshelve an item, especially if it's been used and opened. So what they do typically is take everyone's returns, put them in big boxes, and sell them to liquidation or auction companies. From there, individual buyers can go bid on individual pallets, even up to truckloads. There are options to buy truckloads of pallets for like $22,000, but that's a little bit, it's kind of a high bar to entry. So the way I found mine was actually on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of liquidation sellers will actually buy truckloads, bring them into the state, but so some sellers sell individual liquidation pallets on Facebook Marketplace. So I've been an online reseller for a little while, typically of my own stuff, my family's stuff, wooden furniture that I find on the side of the road and then fix up. So when I started watching Hope Scope, Jamie and Sarah, and Hustle at Home Mom get into liquidations pallets, I was very, very interested. Instead of the questionable legality of dumpster diving, it's a little bit nicer to just be able to go pick up a pallet without having to get in any dumpsters at all. So I purchased mine off of Facebook Marketplace, and I actually unboxed the whole thing on Twitch. So this will just be a financial review today. So I found a person a little bit over an hour from me who was selling liquidation pallets. This person has an online reseller business and buys a bunch of pallets, and he actually was repackaging things into other pallets to sell to like flea market vendors. And I asked this person if he had any unmanifested pallets. I wanted to get into a pallet that no one had gone through yet, and no one had picked out the good stuff yet, hopefully. So I ended up driving down to... I took two cars. It did not all fit in my car, so I'm very happy that I had a friend there to help me. So I drove down and was actually able to take a look at a couple of the unmanifested pallets that he had available. So I looked at this person's pallets, and one that caught my eye had a bamboo toddler like step stool thing in it. And just from bringing that up on eBay, I saw that it was $100+ item. So Jamie and Sarah specifically in their channels, I definitely recommend you go watch them because they've done a ton of these. They recommend that you look on the outside of the pallet and you try to find one thing that will pay for like half the price of the pallet. I was not able to do that, but just from what I could see, a lot of the boxes didn't have any text on them. There were 3 possible pallets there to choose from that were unmanifested and still wrapped up. One of them had a whole huge box full of medical test tubes, like pre-filled with solution, which if you have a market for that, it might have been worth a lot of money. But frankly, I didn't want to start with that. I wanted to be able to start with stuff I could sell locally on Facebook Marketplace. The other one had a lot of large canvases on it, and these were all Amazon purchases, so they were likely just art prints on large canvases that were huge but not worth a lot of money, and I was concerned about being able to all fit it into my car. So I picked the one with the bamboo toddler stand that I looked up and saw that was $100+. Easy. So I packed it all into my car and drove it on back and unpacked it back here behind me. It really did fill up half of this office, so thankfully I had the space to do that. If you'd like to see the overview of me unboxing everything from this pallet, on Twitch I have both a highlights video and a full VOD of unboxing videos where I go through everything, I look up everything, I show the prices. So if you're really interested in every little thing that I got in that pallet, that's a great place to start. So now we're going to go through the financial aspect of this purchase of this pallet. So the purchase price of this pallet was $850 cash. From opening it on Twitch, I found that the MSRP, or manufacturer's suggested retail price of all of the items in the pallet, assuming they were all new, was around $2,400. From watching a lot of Jamie and Sarah, which is where I learned almost everything I know about this. Thank you, Jamie and Sarah. I know that I could expect to receive about 40 to 50% of that MSRP. So even though that seems like, oh, buy it for $850, sell it for $2,400, easy profit, it's not that much. And that also doesn't include fees and taxes that you'll need to pay on these. So for a total purchase price of $850, I received 51 items from this pallet. That makes the cost per item $16.67 per item. So in order to get profit, I need to be selling most things in the pallet for more than $16. The biggest ticket item that we unboxed is a Sharp Eye electric towel warmer, which is a heated mounted wall rack that you'd wire into your wall in the bathroom. Unfortunately, it is broken. So it's worth $200. I'm sort of thinking I might be able to sell it just as a non-electric towel rack because it looks very nice. It's matte black, it's very pretty, but obviously not gonna make $200 or anywhere near that for a broken towel rack. So it's disappointing because that was the most expensive item on the pallet, but that's just how these things go. They are customer returns a lot of the time and you don't know in what state they're going to be returned. The next most expensive item on the pallet was the bamboo toddler step stool that I had picked out, so I'm glad I had the eye for that. Those sell new from anywhere from $150 to $200. The particular model that I got was around $165. I was so excited to open it, and I opened it, and it was broken. It looked like it was made out of bamboo, and so it looked like it had maybe been in a non-temperature controlled warehouse and the bamboo had expanded and shrunk and there were a bunch of hairline cracks in the paint. But because I was so excited about the whole thing, I was like, oh, I could totally sand that off and repaint it. So I did. Definitely took a couple hours of work, like the cost of paint, but I was still able to sell what probably was just going to get thrown away either way, for $120. So all the pieces were working, it was just visually, cracked. So I was just able to do some cosmetic fixes and fix it right up. And obviously I have time to do that. If you're looking for a quick sale or you're working in very high volume, you may not want to fix up everything. But in my case, I found that it was fun. It was a project I could do with my dad, and it was worth the time and money we put into it. There were several other higher cost items on the pallet that really helped pay for it. There was a couple nice faucets. There was a nice folding wagon. There was a metal fireplace screen. Lots of good stuff that I was able to sell for more than the cost per item price. There were lots of small things on the pallet as well, but, you got to resell those to make up some of the money. And also I was working on getting a lot of good reviews on Facebook Marketplace and eBay or wherever I happen to sell the items. As with any returned products, there are always risks in what you will be receiving. And I did have to throw away something immediately upon unboxing. You can check that out in the VOD. Thankfully, I had the good sense to wear gloves when I unboxed it, but they were stair runners that looked like they had been heavily used for many years. They also smelled very heavily like old house. I don't really know how to describe it, but it was matted down. It was disgusting. There was absolutely no coming back from that. So those immediately went in the garbage. But besides that, luckily, I didn't have to throw anything else away. I was even able to sell some dog beds locally, even though they had been taken out of the package. In one case, it did need to be washed, but I was able to clean it up and get it resold, get a little bit of my money back. So I bought this pallet back in October of 2022, and at this point, I have sold $1,171 worth of stuff from the pallet. I have sold 36 of the 51 items, so I still have a few left that I'm hoping to get a few more $100 from. I had $1,700 worth of stuff listed in the first place. So even though, we unboxed all of this and said, okay, it's $2,400 MSRP, $1,700 was what I actually listed after doing research. After I finished up my calculations and cleaned up the spreadsheet a little bit, the final MSRP of the items on the pallet was $2,609. To date, I have sold $1,171. That's about 45% of MSRP that I was actually able to sell. So that's right on the approximation of 40 to 50% of MSRP. So far I've made about $300 profit off this before taxes. Which is, you know, not as good as I was hoping. But frankly, for my first foray, I'm just glad I'm in the green. Besides, it was really fun. I really enjoyed getting to go through it. I enjoyed opening it on stream so much. It's just a lot of fun and varied, interesting work for me. So it's just a good time. I don't know. If I manage to sell everything else on the pallet, knowing that I will probably not make the entirety of the list value, I'm estimating that I will make between $1,300 or $1,400 total before taxes. That'll put my total profit at $450 to $500.
Hey there, this is Editing Scoots, who apparently couldn't do math. I meant $650 or $550. Here are my dogs as an apology, and now back to the video.
That's about 150% of my initial investment. So that's not bad, especially when you don't know what you're getting from a lot of these pallets. I wanted to be very transparent with the financial aspect of getting into pallet reselling, because it's very easy to see that MSRP number and get very excited. Again, buy for $850, sell for $2,400. But obviously this did take a long time. I haven't sold everything on the pallet yet. It's just been lower throughput. So realistically, $450, $500 profit before taxes. Sourcing like this, I find really enjoyable because you don't know how much of that stuff would have been destined for the garbage. Like that bamboo toddler stand, I think someone might have looked at that and just wrote it off as a lost cause. But I'm glad I was able to fix it up, refurbish it, and get a little bit of a return on my investment in return for keeping something out of the landfill. So this initial pallet was easier to see what the end profit could be because I sold most of these things locally on Facebook Marketplace. A lot of the items were very big and bulky, and I was not interested in figuring out eBay shipping for that. And frankly, I was able to sell pretty much everything locally so far. There was one thing that sold on eBay that I wasn't able to sell locally just because it was a piece of a pipe. And Facebook's pretty good about taking down things like that. eBay's not, for some reason. I just did porch pickup for all of the items, which was really nice. At the time, I was able to continue working my day job and just have people come by, pick the thing off of my front porch, and then leave cash. No one's ever tried to pull a fast one on me. I have a security camera. I live in a pretty safe area with not a lot of porch pirates. Obviously, if that were the case, it would be different. But it just made it so easy for me because all I had to do was pop whatever I was selling outside. People would come by. I could just quick go outside and pick up the cash. I have since invested in a front porch chest that I can keep my items in. Instead of a box that says, hey, I'm a very expensive thing, I can just put it inside the chest and at least have it be out of public view for the most part. And then people can come get it at their leisure. For some of the items, it was worth the extra elbow grease in fixing them or getting them cleaned up. And you can do that at your discretion. But I found that the small items typically would sell better if you put them together. So there were a few like small end tables that I just put together out of box and sold. I also wanted to make sure that all of the pieces were included. I'm not sure I would do that again after just making sure all the pieces are included, but it certainly was easier to like stage the photo and take a nice looking photo with the little end table set up in my house, rather than trying to find a stock photo off of Amazon. I've definitely used a stock photo a couple times, but unfortunately it does confuse people sometimes. Like there's a clear table protector that people really think is a table that I'm selling. It's not a table, it's just the clear thing on top. The title says it's a clear thing on top, and I still keep getting messages that are like, do the chairs come with it? No, it's just the top part. So, but that's my fault. I just don't have a beautiful way of staging that. I don't have a round table, so it would look pretty bad. Typical photography advice applies for reselling. If you can just have a nice picture of the item, that will go very far. Even if you just move some stuff out of the way, set it against your wall, take the picture of, you know, the floor and your wall as the backdrop, like that's a nice place to start. If you don't need a fancy background necessarily. You just need a nice clear picture and lots of detail shots. And a clear disclosure of any problems or caveats there might be to the item. So, what did we learn in this overall journey of about 6 months selling my very first Amazon liquidation pallet? In my experience, I agree that 40 to 50% of MSRP is what you can expect to bring home before taxes. We had about $2,600 MSRP from that first pallet. We can expect to bring home about $1,300 to $1,400 total. I also learned that it's a total grab bag of items. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know the status of the items you're going to get. Even if you see something expensive on the outside, it might be broken. So this is not a surefire way to make money, but with some practice and knowing that you may have worse luck on some pallets than others, you can go into this and make a little side money. I don't see this being an extremely profitable full-time hustle unless you're really able to sell large volumes very quickly. The people that buy truckloads of liquidation pallets and then resell them in bin stores, that's one thing. That's an example of a large amount of volume going through. But individual sellers may struggle just in terms of the cost of investment. Would I pay $850 for a pallet again? Probably not, unless I saw something that was really big ticket. That's a pretty high price to start with. In all of the videos of other pallet flippers that I've watched, they've been able to get their pallets cheaper because they've been able to actually go to liquidation centers. I don't have that option, unfortunately, so I did have to pay the higher price tag. But it was still fun. You know, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but at least I made some money. At first, I was terrified that I had just spent almost $1,000 on junk. But a lot of it turned out to be really good stuff I was able to clean up and resell. It was also very fun to open it on Twitch. People love watching unboxing videos. So I had a very active community, very active chat. And I would love to keep doing that to supplement my additional online reselling business. So overall, this might be an interesting thing if you'd like to do it to make a little bit of side money. Definitely be careful, do your research, buy in person, try to look at the outside of the pallet, make an educated guess about what it could possibly be in there. Have you bought an Amazon returns pallet? Have I scared you off of buying an Amazon return pallet forever? Leave a comment below. I want to hear about your experience, if you did well, if you did poorly, and also if you found 30-year-old stair runners that smelled like old house. Thank you so much for watching, and I do plan on opening more return pallets in the future over on my Twitch channel, so if you'd like to go over there and subscribe, that would be great. Otherwise, I will see you around. Bye! But I was able to... This is my inventory. Unspeakable evil that's back there. Also, if you see me look pained at any point, it's because I hurt myself doing absolutely nothing like 5 minutes ago. So that's fun.